Will you stand and do the pledge with us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Becky, let the record show all members of the board are present. Okay, everybody look the consent agenda over.
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Okay, first up, David Levy, attorney, Baird Home, and Matt Wyatt, director, planning and development. Update on and discussion of wind and solar ordinances.
Yes, so I have Lee here with me today. David couldn't make it. He had a conflicting board of supervisors meeting that he had to attend. And so Lee is going to talk to you all a little bit about solar and wind.
Yeah, thank you very much. As Matt said, my name is Lee Greenwald. I'm with Baird Home. We're based in Omaha, and we've come at the zoning regulation process in a lot of different places and from a lot of different angles. So we bring a lot of experience to the table. We're excited you've engaged our services, and really just wanted to talk about some of the general principles and sort of methodology that we use, and then we know that you will refer this process down to your planning commission to get it started, and we will provide draft regulations for your planning commission to discuss at its next meeting, which I understand is August 21st,
Yes.
if I said that correctly. And so just a little bit about it, you know, at its core level, the balance that we have to strike here is the balance between the rights of the participating and the non-participating landowners. And participating, of course, being those who have signed contracts with developers to derive benefits from their land, and the non-participants who choose not to and would rather not have the effects on their property. And obviously, there's always a balance to be made in there. In finding that balance, the discretion is yours, and you have broad discretion, and we will try to guide you and give you options. But ultimately, you drive the process as far as the substance, and you have broad discretion as local government controls this process. I know this is probably not news to any of you. You've clearly done this before, but from our perspective, we really want to make sure that you're driving it and not us. And so, you know, there's a couple primary decisions that will need to be revisited or reconsidered as part of this process. The first is the zoning districts, where to allow them as principal uses and where to allow them as conditional uses. Then you're going to get into site and development standards, so setbacks for solar, visual screening, and for wind, sound limits, right? And all of these things are going to have interest from both the elected and appointed officials and from members of the community. Then we take a look as well as considerations to protect the county. So when it comes to decommissioning, right, which is the process of removing these projects at the end of their useful life. It's the developer's obligation to decommission a project, but how do they protect the county in the event that developer fails to do so? And then you get into financial securities and things like that. Similarly, county road use. You decide which roads and routes are used for the hauling of equipment and materials. It's the developer's obligation to repair those roads. How do you protect the county? How do you get financial security as well in the event that those developers fail to do that? And those are all things that we'll look to address as we move through your zoning regulations. Obviously, it is not an exhaustive list, and I don't think that's what anybody here signed up for today. But just wanted to put out some of those initial considerations. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce ourselves. I'd entertain any questions you have.
You done the Mills County ordinances?
That's correct.
On both?
That's what our firm did, yeah.
Okay, that seemed pretty successful.
Yeah, we're pleased with the outcome, and it seems to have a favorable perception in the community as well. And as you know, zoning decisions don't always have that because you are always finding a balance, right? And so to have that positive outcome, it's something we take pride in, yes.
Are we working on it? now, we give approval to move forward on,
Correct, we're gonna go to the planning commission with drafts on it at the next meeting, which is August 21st.
do we have any drafts yet?
No,
Nope, it would be our intent to have a draft for the planning commission to consider at its next meeting.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Have you looked at a contract that these companies that are putting up these windmills are offering to landowners? Have you taken a look at these contracts in the past?
I've seen a lot of them, yeah. I can't say I've seen any specific to this county.
Okay, I talked to a farmer over by Trainer. There was a company that actually located an office in Trainer, trying to sell wind farm generation. And nobody over there, after reading the contract, the fellow that I was talking to, was explaining to me why he objected to anything on that contract, or a lot of things on that contract. And I heard that, and I'm thinking, okay, at some point, if this is a contract that's being asked to be signed by property owners, at some point, the county could very well be liable for taking these things down. You know, if the company goes bankrupt or defunct or fails to remove these things once they're past their prime. And he mentioned one thing, the concrete base. Basically, how big is that concrete base? That's a lot of concrete that they're pouring.
And you're speaking about wind turbines at this point.
Wind
in
turbines,
time.
right.
I can't tell you what the size of a concrete turbine base is off the
Okay,
top of my head.
it's a lot of concrete.
It's a lot of
I
concrete.
don't know what size it is, but when they're in that contract on the fine print, when they're being forced to take these things down for whatever reason, they're only going to take the concrete down to a certain level below ground level.
Mhm.
Not taking the concrete out,
Mhm.
but the remaining concrete in there is going to be a sizable portion of that concrete block anyway, which is going to affect, it has to affect the drainage and the water supplies to crops. If you're gonna plant crops over that spot,
Mhm.
it has to affect that. So I'm just asking, you know, the fine print on a lot of these contracts that these farmers, landowners are asking to sign on to. But you said that they vary, these contracts vary?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I think, thank you for the question. I think there are really two parts to that question. The substance of the contracts between private landowners and private developers are not something that we regulate, right? But that said, you can regulate the concerns that you have in your decommissioning requirements.
Right.
Like what you're really talking about right now is decommissioning and the removal of the improvements at the end of their useful life. And so you can, through your regulations, define how far down you must remove,
All of it.
or
in my
all of it,
opinion,
if you
yes.
choose.
No, in my opinion, it's gonna be all of it.
Okay, fair enough. And so you can decide that, and you can decide, what type of financial security that developer has to have in place in the event they default on that obligation, so that, for example, a bond. And the county could then draw on that bond, hire a contractor, go pull it out to meet the requirements. And the developer would be required to have that up front with you, so you've always got that assurance as the county. And the other thing we often do with our decommissioning provisions is we have the bond or the financial security requirement track the actual cost, the decommissioning cost estimate, which would be prepared by a professional engineer, and it would tell you, usually you update it every 5 years, it would tell you exactly how much it would cost to pull that project out of the ground. Then you make the developer match that with their bond, so you have that adjusting in real time as material costs, salvage costs, all of those things
Okay.
happen.
Now, question, why would a wind generation plant be decommissioned? I mean, is it past its prime, it's no longer useful? Or is the government subsidies come to an end and then it's no longer feasible for the company to operate that machine at that point? I don't know, I'm just asking.
It could be any, based on any individual business model. I think usually it's going to be the project is beyond its useful life. There's been wear and tear, and the landowner may not want to renew the contract. If they do, then it goes through a process called repowering. And we'll tell you that more commonly than not, when these improvements are already built and working, the landowners are typically satisfied and they are repowered. Now, that's not everywhere, and that anyone may decide ultimately. But there's a number of different reasons why you might decommission a project. The other thing you'll do in your regulations or should do, is require the developer to decommission the project if it hasn't been producing energy for a period of, say, usually it's 6 months or 1 year, whatever you decide. Because that way you can't have a project sitting out there, the developer saying, we're gonna do something with it, we're gonna do something with it. Well, no, if it's not producing energy for a set amount of time, then the developer needs to be required to go decommission the project.
That sounds good. A lot of people are very concerned about decommissioning. Do we look at an endowment fund or just the bond?
There's a number of different methods of financial security. I'd say the most typical is a bond. You can also do parent company guarantees depending on the size of your developer. And so it's not, they'll typically form a special purpose entity to hold project assets. And you might have the larger parent company. Oftentimes they're big enough that you're comfortable with that. Alternatively, you can, seek other methods. There's some people elect to do escrow accounts, some people elect to do bonds. I think it's a good idea to give yourself flexibility in your regulations and then allow yourself to determine the nature of the financial security through your conditional use permit process. Because then it allows you to tailor that to the size and nature of the specific project. But you can always elect to set that forth right from the get-go so everybody knows what it is.
Okay.
Have you ever conducted a survey where these wind generation farms are, over by Avoca, for instance? Have you ever conducted a survey of people who have to deal with these wind farms at that area? People who live in that area, how the effect that these wind farms have, noise, destroying wildlife, that kind of thing, red lights blinking at night, looks like the sun coming up. Have you done a survey of any of that?
I have not, sir. I am aware of a number of surveys, both with respect to annoyance from adjacent landowners, property values, just things like that. And there's a lot of information out there that we could provide. However, I have not conducted the survey that you're.
And then one more thing that the fellow I was talking to, the farmer and trainer, mentioned that during a large rains we've been getting lately, the water that spins off these blades are creating ditches down on the ground because there's just a lot of water runoff with these blades that create. So just another issue that maybe these property owners that are thinking about this need to be aware of. So.
Yeah, and you can require developers to provide, runoff, water, stormwater prevention plans, things like that. And also to plant, especially in the case of solar panels where you're going to have ground cover underneath them, to plant native vegetation that's going to help with erosion and runoff and things like that. And you can require all of those things in your regulations to address that concern.
Okay. Susan, anything?
I just am anxious to look at the first draft of the
Yeah.
ordinance. So.
Okay, very good.
Scott?
Yeah, waiting to see what the product is.
Yeah, what was that, we said not to exceed 5,000, is that what we did?
Not to exceed 10.
Was it 10?
Yes.
I think you're right.
Was it 10?
Yes, 10,000.
Okay. Thanks for coming in, Lee.
Yes, thank
Really
you for
appreciate
having me. Look forward to working with you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Protect our county.
Will do.
Okay, next up is Brenda Mainwaring, President and CEO of Iowa West Foundation. Update and discussion of grant award cycle number 2.
Good morning.
Hi, Brenda.
Last week, the board approved cycle 2 grants, and I'm here to talk about them. I was very late in getting the documentation out to you. Do you have it? I have it
Yeah,
copies.
in the packet.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. Sorry about that. So just kind of a quick high-level overview and then any questions you have. So there's 3 primary areas we looked at this grant cycle. First, we're trying to make sure that we think about arts that we're supporting in the metro area being very focused on serving our Iowa students. So we're rethinking how we handle those arts awards so that we're looking at, we're making awards to organizations that have a plan to either bring Iowa students to their facility or bring their programming here to Iowa. It's not just, hey, we have this program and Iowa's welcome. We want to make sure it's very focused. So we've done a lot of that with our, what we're referring to as enrichment with various organizations and performing arts and music. Secondly, and I believe I talked to you about this last time, we have moved away from a scholarship program towards something that is more focused on workforce development for all the county districts. We understand that rural and urban students have different kinds of needs when it comes to workforce development, and so we're working with each district to understand what their program needs to build a better workforce development program. So students who want to leave high school with a diploma and a certificate, an associate's degree, something like that, all of those students at the school have that opportunity. So we've made some additional grants for that. And then the last area of focus is regional housing. At this point, we're really focused on Council Bluffs, but we've made also, I think, Brian, you may have asked, I'm not sure, somebody asked last time about whether or not our new program for the county, what we're doing for vibrant rural communities is also available for housing, which it is. Meanwhile, we're trying to make sure that we're focused on new, innovative ways to really reach the scale of housing that this community and this region needs. So we're making some grants in that area. For example, when somebody applies, when somebody who is sort of at the very low end of income needs to find a place to live, they have to apply. And every time they apply, it costs them money. They don't have that kind of money in the first place. So we're trying to create a system where they can make one application and all of the landlords can be able to refer to that one application. So it's just one fee. So trying to do things smarter and maybe save money for everybody and get them an opportunity to move in. We're also creating somebody who can go out with the police department and deal with some of the psychological, mental health needs that the police are not necessarily prepared to deal with. When they go out and find somebody who's homeless, they may need a social worker with them. So we're providing some services for the police department to do that. We're really focused on food bank services in the county as a whole, both through the Food Bank of Iowa and through Together Inc. I think I've mentioned before, when we opened the pantry here in Council Bluffs and moved away from solely church-based, the number of residents in the county, in the rural parts of the county, who came to that pantry was kind of astounding. But it really demonstrated that what we had previously was not serving the greater need. It was kind of serving neighborhood needs. So we're continuing that support. Also, support to Golden Hills RC&D to make sure that they can continue to expand the things that they want to look at. Any questions about any of that?
No, I think you got a good grouping here.
No.
Right.
Thank you for what you guys do and the effort you guys put in to get these things accomplished.
I really appreciate you re-looking at things and doing things different. I was on the city's program when I was mayor and it got frustrating.
Yes, I'm just a Council Bluffs kid trying to do the right thing.
You know what though, but if it isn't working and you're changing it or looking at changing it, that helps greatly. So I appreciate that, Brenda. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
I've heard some good things.
I'll see you in November, December, if not before.
Okay, thanks for coming in. Okay, next up, John Rasmussen, engineer, discussion and/or decision to accept or reject the petition to establish a secondary road assessment district on Honeysuckle Road from 185th Street east to the dead end and set a public hearing date for August 22nd if the petition is accepted. John?
Well, it sounds like everything's in there.
Yeah.
We received a petition with 13 of the 25 identified parcels.
Okay.
It's reached more than 50%. Once you accept the petition, it's not final. That just starts the public hearing process, the notifications, and all the other work that needs to happen before the public hearings.
Okay.
At the public hearing, we have a wide range of things you can do in Code 311. We'll talk about that when we get there, I guess. But this is just going to have me start the process to get to public hearing.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. Got a motion and a second. Becky, would you do a roll call for me, please?
Yes, Chairman Shea,
Yep.
Supervisors Jorgensen,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Belt,
All right,
Wickman.
sure.
Okay,
August 22nd at 10 o'clock.
okay, we got to the public hearing, so thanks for coming in. Next up, Snyder and Associates, presentation concerning county inspection role for the proposed CO2 pipeline project. Hello, Michael. You want to come up front?
Yes, good.
Let's get you in the hot seat.
What's that one, presenter?
If you want to sit up there, that's fine.
Do you have a presentation?
Okay.
You guys want a paper copy?
Sure.
Okay.
I've,
Yeah, I
She
sent
brought
it to you, I don't know if you shared it, but we can share
Paper
copies
copies,
as well.
yes. There's some maps and things in there you
Thank
may
you.
like to look at.
Mike,
Thank
you
you.
sit down if you want. It don't matter. If you want to sit, whatever you want to do.
Well, we can stand.
Okay.
You said it was the hot seat, so I don't wanna sit.
You got right in the middle, didn't
I
you?
don't wanna sit.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll go ahead and make introductions. I'm Mike Geyer with Snyder and Associates, 1751 Madison Avenue, Council Bluffs. And with me is Christina Paradise. Christina is from our Fort Dodge office. And Fort Dodge is ground zero for the IUB hearing processes that are taking place. They're gonna hold those in Fort Dodge. There's a hearing coming up in August.
August 22nd, beginning August 22nd. It's gonna run probably about 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay.
Nobody really knows how long it's gonna take.
So Christina serves as our project manager for our pipeline inspection services throughout Iowa. If we are selected to do anything here in Potawatomi County, we'll staff the actual field work with local personnel. We also have our Atlantic office that's involved in Montgomery County, doing work
Yes,
in Montgomery County.
That's correct.
So we have several counties that are already signed with us for the Summit Carbon Pipeline, and you have other counties that are signed with, what's the other pipeline?
Navigator Greenway.
Navigator.
Yeah, we have 7 or 8 counties signed up with them as well.
So what we do kind of in summary is protecting the interests of the county and the landowners through this process. So we have no connection whatsoever with any of the pipeline companies or anything like that. But if it happens, then we provide the service where we're going out, making sure during construction, restoration, the drain tiles are getting put back, that surface restoration is happening, the drainage concerns are taken care of, erosion and runoff, all of those sorts of things. So that's kind of a broad spectrum of what we do. And just a side note, back in I hate even saying when this was, but it was in the early 80s. I myself was on a pipeline, a petroleum pipeline going through Polk County, Iowa, doing the same sort of thing. So it doesn't matter what's within that pipe, but when the pipeline goes through, it's making sure that everything is protected in terms of the landowner's interests and the county's interests through that process. So again, Christina is managing this work for us throughout the state of Iowa for the different pipelines. Locally, we would staff with people from here. And that's kind of my big overview, and I'll let Christina go ahead and talk about the specifics and what we do and kind of follow through the
All right.
presentation.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christina Paradise, and as Mike said, I'm the project manager for Snyder for the county inspection services that we're offering to the counties for the Summit Carbon Pipeline. I've been with Snyder for 6 years, and before that I traveled doing heavy industrial construction and actually worked on 3 pipeline projects, and I held PHMSA qualifications, operator qualifications up until the last 2 years. I let them expire because I was done traveling. I made my mind up, I wasn't going back on the road. So anyway, I've been involved with pipelines firsthand. I worked on the Keystone Pipeline project I worked on a Columbia Gas project on the East Coast, and also worked for a copper mine over in Chile, in South America. Yeah, that was a very interesting project.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so 20 years of that was enough. So getting to the presentation, I just want to run through really quickly what we offer. And what we offer is not different than any other engineering company would offer. We inspect to the county's agreement with the pipeline company, whatever agreement you have with them. We would hold to that. We would hold to Chapter 9 of Iowa Administrative Code and 479B20. That's the law that we work towards. We would ensure that, can we go to the next slide? So pre-construction, we have to set up our filing structure, and the IUB recommends one file per parcel of land. So it's going to be a pretty tedious process. We've got a document control specialist that has worked for me before, that is coming to Fort Dodge, that's going to be setting all that up, and she's going to be managing all the documents and all the inspection. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot of paper, and I want it to be organized properly and accurately. So we're bringing her in. Pre-construction, we would go out and photograph, document the pre-construction condition of the land. So this is how it was before construction started. Then we would inspect to Chapter 9 and 479B20. There are separate agreements that the pipeline has assured me that they have many of these signed with landowners. So it's separate from the easement. It's called, they call them separate agreements. It would be in relation to any special provision that you wanted to have put into the easement. So maybe you wanted the timber off those, they were going to clear trees. You want the firewood, okay? That would be part of a landowner, a special agreement, a separate agreement. Also, some restoration modifications can be made in that. Fencing, for instance, gates. Like you could waive their obligation to seed after construction. A landowner can. So they could just leave it barren if that was what you wanted. So we would inspect those separate agreements. Those will be part of the package.
You get each of those agreements for different property
Yes, the
owners?
pipeline provides those to us.
Christine, how often do you give us a report when that's being built, if it's being built?
Oh, wow, I would think every week or every 2
Okay.
weeks while it's
Okay.
in your county.
Yes,
For sure.
Correct.
Probably a weekly written report.
okay.
Just in general, if it's constructing, they're working another spread somewhere else, I would probably send you a monthly report.
How long do you think this would take to go through Pot County if it's built?
I think it will probably take them 2 months, maybe 3.
Okay,
I think it'll go pretty fast.
from start to finish,
Well,
done.
from start to.
Weather,
Yeah, with weather
Related.
and what you consider finish. If you consider lowering the pipe into the ground and backfilling it, that's not really finished.
totally graded,
Oh, it's gonna be
everybody's okay?
probably 3 to 4, maybe 6 months.
Okay,
Yeah.
I had
It's
no
gonna be
idea how
it's
long
gonna be a
it'd
mess
take.
for a while.
Yeah, the restoration process can vary, and as Christine said, if landowners they have a certain crop type that they have or something like that. So the IUB says, well, you have to go in and seed and fertilize after you're done. Well, if it's in row crop land, you're not gonna go seed and fertilize.
Right.
The landowner or the farmer is gonna put back what they wanna put back. So that restoration process, and it could take even a full season's worth
It could.
from beginning to end until it's fully restored.
Yeah, it very well could. With the roads, the access roads and the testing, it could take a year. But they're planning on doing the whole state in about 18 months.
Wow,
That's what they're planning.
that's pretty
They're
fast.
planning 6 spreads. So a spread it's like, if you imagine pipeline construction like a train, So you got the first crew there clearing the land, the next crew is cutting the road and starting the trenching. Then the welding crew, they follow one right in behind the other. They're gonna have 6 sets of those working in different locations throughout the state. Yes,
Wow.
6 spreads at one time.
But
That's
again,
carbon,
that's,
you're
what
talking
you're
carbon,
referring to in timeline
you're
is
talking carbon solutions, right?
Summit Carbon Solutions, yes, sir.
just some,
Mhm.
is the cut and cover portion, so, yeah,
Right.
once it's cut, put
Right.
together, buried, and then again, the restoration, all
The
the cleanup and
restoration
things
is-
can take longer.
It takes, the restoration is a booger sometimes.
Well, you've looked at the plan, is that right? The plan for Potawatomi County, the pipes going through Potawatomi County?
Yes,
Where do they go? I mean, where?
there is a map in your
Yeah.
packet. If you look at page 11 of your packet,
Yeah.
if you can scroll to page 11. There are, I think I counted 11 eminent domain properties in Potawatomi County currently. This is current as of, I think about 10 days ago, or maybe last week, July 21st.
We had 14 today.
14,
Yeah,
how did that happen?
I don't know,
How'd they get-
we received notice of 14 of them
1,
today.
2, 3,
All you
scroll down.
received today,
Yeah, wasn't that right, John?
Those came in, I think, the same packet. What I didn't understand is some of them came in certified, some came regular mail, so I haven't checked the surveys to see if they're
Can you scroll down?
copies. So there's either 7 or 14, I just haven't.
Purple is not
Okay.
in the domain, 3,
so it's the
5, keep
red
going.
parcels.
6, 7, 8, 9, okay? Pull down. That's it, isn't it?
Well,
I count 11.
Okay.
But
Maybe they
it's
send some
still-
duplicates.
Somewhere,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
somewhere in that vicinity.
Okay.
So they have the majority.
They're still working with those people, correct?
They are, but the hearing that's scheduled for August the 22nd, that's the hearing.
D-Day.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there were 562 interventions filed with the IUB on this project. It's a record. Yep, 562
That's why you're expecting the hearing to last days.
months, probably, yeah. Yeah, they're taking written testimony right now. So I get on my personal email and on my work email, I get an email notification every time a document is filed with the IUB. So I'm pretty well acquainted with it, you know, I
Okay.
can't always quote you exactly, but I can tell you, you know, pretty close what's going on. I can tell you a lot about what's happening.
And then
you
the
know.
workers on the line would be out of your office, Michael?
Yes.
Okay.
So we would have one process for Snyder, you know, one inspection process. We would have one set of forms and, you know, like, and all the paperwork would funnel through the Fort Dodge office. But Mike's guys would be the ones, boots on the ground here.
Jeff, you had something?
Well, the pipe that's going through Potawatomi County is not hooking on to any ethanol plant in Potawatomi County. Is that correct when I say that?
I don't think it is.
Okay, so it's just going through,
It's traveling through.
okay.
How many ethanol plants do you have here?
Just
One.
One?
And I think that's it.
Yeah.
Just down by the power plant. That's the only one.
Yeah, they're just south.
The others are in Cass County and
Yeah.
Montgomery.
County. Page.
Is there one in Mills?
No, at this point.
No.
Okay, we can go back. So, yeah, go back up to like page probably 5, 4, 5. So there's the responsibilities, you know, go on down to the next one. There you go. So this is kind of an informal notice of violation process for us internally. So the first thing we would do when we found a nonconformance in the field is I would go to the foreman and say, hey, did you see this? You know, 9 out of 10 times, he's gonna correct it. You know, he's gonna get his guys, he's gonna say, hey, get over there, fix that, you know, and that's fine. That'll be the end of it. If he says, I don't believe that's a nonconformance, I think you're crazy, then we stop work. Then it's time we stop work. You know, we try to talk it out. We can't talk it out, and then we're gonna put paper on it. We're gonna hand him a piece of paper, and if he still refuses to repair or replace, whatever it is, then we have to write it up and bring it to you. We bring it to the Board of Supervisors. Then you can petition the IUB for sanctions against the pipeline.
Have you had that happen
No.
on jobs?
No.
They want to get it done right.
They want to do it right.
Okay.
They value their reputation. They're not gonna, they're not gonna fight us. We're not gonna be unreasonable. We're gonna only inspect to the code, and to the landowner agreement and to the county's agreement.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I can't inspect the well. I can't tell him if the well's good or bad. I can tell him if he segregated the topsoil and the subsoil,
Mhm.
So there's only certain things that we inspect.
And that's a good point of clarification, that we would have nothing in this process, and what we provide again is protecting the interests of the landowners and the county. We have nothing to do with the physical pipeline itself to make sure that it's safe and does what it's supposed to do. That's beyond our expertise.
That's
We
the
have
federal.
nothing to do with the carrier, the
Mhm.
pipe, just all the land and restoration.
Just the agricultural land. If it goes through a town, that wouldn't be us. It's just the agricultural restoration.
Actually, I don't think we go through any
I don't think
towns.
so either.
We don't wanna do that.
We go
Yeah, they
close.
come pretty close to a lot of them.
What is it, a little over a mile from Carson?
Yes. Less than a mile to Oakland.
Miles.
So who inspects the wells and so forth? Is that the company that does that themselves? or-
Yes, sir.
So that's not a separate entity that guarantees that kind of work?
Well, typically they hire an NDE or they hire somebody to do all their NDE work. They have an Acuren or
A sub-consultant.
yes, thank you.
With the pipeline,
Yes.
perhaps, that
Team
is
services. I mean,
certifying.
Their check comes from the pipeline, but through another agency. Just like, technically our check would come from the pipeline because you guys aren't gonna write us a check. We don't expect you to. The pipeline is responsible for payment. We don't work for the pipeline, but the pipeline is responsible for our payment, similar to that. So, and PHMSA is the oversight for all of the mechanical part of it, the welding and the coatings and the cathodic protection and all those things would be the federal regulatory agency. So that's our NCR process. The next one, talking about scope of work for inspection and reporting. We would be responsible for staking and clearing. Well, we don't stake and clear, we observe the staking and clearing. We observe trees and brush clearing and fencing. So they will remove fences. They may put them back, that's what it says in their agricultural mitigation plan. If you flip into your booklet to the second set of staples, that's their proposed agricultural mitigation plan. And that says what they're gonna do. If it's approved by the IUB, that's what we inspect to.
Okay.
But it says may replace fences, I'm not sure about that. I guess if there's livestock, you would have to, wouldn't you?
I think you're right.
Pumping of water from open trenches, the IUB is or Iowa code is very specific about what we can do with pumping water from trenches and what's allowable and what's not. Temporary and permanent repair of private drain tiles. I understand you all have drainage districts here, but you're not the trustees. Are you the?
No, there's boards on each of them, and we do have representatives on those
Okay.
boards.
Okay. All right.
There'd be trustees for the drainage and levee districts.
Okay.
It's more the soil and water conservation.
Yeah,
Okay. So then it would be temporary or permanent repair of drain tile. They have to mark, anytime they damage a tile, they have to mark it for temporary repair. We have to do a full inspection of a permanent repair. It has to be supported and backfilled properly. Okay, you can go to the next one. Removal of rocks and debris from the easement. Restoration of soil compaction and rutting. Restoration of terraces, waterways, and other erosion control substructures. Revegetation of untilled land, including crop production, delayed crop production, and weed control. Restoration of the land slope and contour. Restoration of areas used for field entrances or temporary roads, and construction in wet conditions. Separate agreements, here's where we address that, you know. A copy of all separate agreements shall be provided by the pipeline company. I've already spoken with them, the project manager, and he's assured me there are many. So he'll be dumping those on us, probably, I hope earlier rather than later, but probably at the last minute. And then project completion and document submittal.
Going back to the construction in wet conditions, have you been successful in stopping them to doing work when
Yes, they will stop.
they will?
They will stop. They've already said they're gonna yield to our right of way. We're gonna define what's too wet. That means the inspector and potentially the landowner or one of the supervisors. If you're out there and you say, look, it's too wet, stop it. They'll stop. They'll stop. But they're gonna mat. What they're gonna do is come in and strip the topsoil off the land and stabilize it, pile it up. And they're gonna put railroad ties, they're gonna put mats down, like crane mats. And they're gonna build a temporary road. And that's how they're gonna access. So, and then when they're done, they'll just pull those mats up and lay the topsoil back down. Well, yeah, they'll have to do some decompaction, but yeah, it's gonna be a mess.
Yeah, I worry about them hauling the heavy equipment
Mhm.
on our secondary roads when it's too wet.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's a concern, right? Do you guys have a pipeline ordinance or any kind of a pipeline resolution for construction of these? Like,
I'm not sure.
No.
That's saying no.
so it would be up to your engineer to issue haul permits for the pipeline, right?
Right.
And I'm sure you have processes
Road use
there.
agreements.
Yeah,
Yep.
so,
Do absentee landowners cause a problem for you guys? I mean, is that,
I think the tenant has just about the same right as the landowner.
okay,
So if there's a tenant, yes.
all right.
And they can observe construction on their property. They can be out there with us.
Okay.
So the IUB hearing is set to begin. We think probably spring of 2024. That was as of yesterday. It's possible that will change again. He said, I talked to one of the project managers yesterday, and he said they may do some stripping and some temporary access roads in the fall, but it's spring before they actually start construction.
When do the federal tax incentives end that they have to have?
I don't know.
They have to start doing something before those.
Right, they have to be moving carbon, I think. Yeah. It can't just be in construction, I don't think. I think it has to be in production.
Okay.
So this pipeline, they don't build it in county sections, do they? Do they start south and go north, or go north and go south?
They're gonna work it in 6 spreads, and on this leg of it, on the north-south run is what I call this.
Okay,
They said they were gonna start at the south end and work their way north,
okay.
okay, up
So
to
they're
the
gonna
main
start
line.
south of us,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Down at the, what's that one in Page County?
Page County, yep.
Thank you.
So, 70% of easements have been secured, according to Summit Carbon Solution. There are 972, at last count, eminent domain properties in the state of Iowa. And all but 11 or 12, or somewhere in there, have been gotten for Pottawatomie County. So what's special about Snyder? Well, we think there's a lot special about Snyder and Associates. Anybody with construction experience and an engineering license can do this work. But we're your neighbors. We live here, you know. I mean, we're gonna be here tomorrow, we're gonna be here next year, we're gonna be here in 10 years. You know, and if problems develop down the road and you need photographs and you don't have your access to them, you pick up the phone and you call Snyder and you've got your photographs, you've got your report that you need, you know. We're gonna be here to support that. We do continuously monitor IUB filings, and We share information with certain counties upon their request. Some counties want specific things and others aren't, they're not really interested at all, but most of our counties are pretty involved. We have attended landowner meetings and have given a handout to landowners to assist them with the easement process. We don't give legal advice, but it's just a general handout that we can provide. And we have absolutely no affiliation with any pipeline company.
What about ethanol plants?
Ethanol?
Do you have any affiliations with any of the
No.
ethanol plants?
None whatsoever. So invoicing and payment. So we would invoice monthly to the county, and the county would take the invoice and forward it to the pipeline. We know there would be a lag in payment between the time the pipeline pays the county and then you cut a check to us. We acknowledge that, and we extended our time for payment on our invoices. We're willing to work with you guys on it. It's not, we don't expect you to reach into your funds to cover this inspection. It's pipeline
Because it's a
responsibility.
pass-through for us.
It's a
So,
pass-through, exactly.
well, yes and no. They're dealing with government. So what is appropriate for us for the matriculation fee for handling this?
Some counties are charging a lot. Some counties are charging actual expenses and costs, and, some counties are charging, like for drainage district crossings, I've heard of $10,000 per crossing fee, above costs. It just depends on what you guys come up with, what you,
Okay. So you're
you're gonna have to determine that
Is that
eventually.
negotiated or is,
That's negotiated with the pipeline. The pipeline is, actually, you should have something in place to hand them, for them to have a starting point, to know what your processes are,
okay.
so they know what they need to do.
Has there been any communication with
We
Summit
haven't,
and you all?
we haven't, we haven't, real low-level persons come in, I'd say.
He's come in and give us little updates, but nothing of this sort.
Nothing of in
As
writing and
far as
such.
going to a. formal agreement.
We should get probably, I don't know, I'm gonna say 10% for
Sure.
handling the process.
And handling me.
And taking taxpayers' cash to run the thing, you're 1%. But okay.
So once construction starts in this county, we would have people on the ground every day when the pipeline is working. Without question, there would be people on the ground there with them. They wouldn't be out there working without us being there.
Typically, do they work weekends too?
They say no, but I expect 7/12s before it's done. I expect they'll
Okay.
be working 7 days a week, 12 hours a day.
Okay.
That's just something we would prepare for. It's potential they could work nights too.
And if it's spring, when they want to get it done, you're dancing with the weather.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's
So,
gonna be challenging. It's gonna be
Okay.
I don't think they realize how challenging it's gonna be.
Now, if I get this right, you're responsible for if the farm or the landowner or tenant, the crops need to be productive on top of this
Right,
pipeline
Right.
fill. But if the pipe itself springs a leak, you're not responsible for that.
absolutely not. That's the Federal Pipeline Regulatory Agency, PHMSA.
All right.
Yeah, and they're inspectors. That would not be us.
All right.
We are just agricultural inspectors. The rest of the slides are just information only. The agricultural mitigation plan, as I said, is what they have submitted to the IUB. It is not approved yet. The very last sheet of your packet shows what counties we have. We're working with Montgomery, Webster, Hancock, Cassuth, Emmett, who else? Green. I can't remember. That might be all of them. There's 8 of them. And we would love to work
are
with
they
you
all
guys.
signed now?
They're all signed up, yes, sir. So the process would go like, if you vote and you decide to hire us, somebody would call me or email me and say, we'd like, yeah, or him. And then I would prepare a notice of designation and send it to you or him. And you guys would sign it. Well, you actually wouldn't sign it, you would redact it, you would just put an S. Because the IUB won't accept any signed documents. No signatures allowed,
Really?
really. It's a
Why
new
is that?
privacy thing. It's a new privacy thing.
Okay.
They won't accept them. So I just recommend the counties put the S by your name and //. You send that back, I file it with the IUB. It's a notice of designation. Then you're on record. And then within probably a couple of weeks, I would send you a contract. And it just says exactly what we just covered. And you would sign that and you're on board. But the notice of designation notifies the pipeline and the IUB that you've selected Snyder. Any other questions?
Matt, have you got any questions?
Nope.
You've heard all this.
When do
Board
we have to
members?
have, when do we have to have, our inspector online contracted?
You should really already
Chosen.
have one, to be honest with you. If you look at
Really?
that back page, it kind of says, these guys haven't made a selection yet. And your names are on there. It says
Floyd,
Potawatomi.
Franklin, Hamilton, Hardin, Lyon, Plymouth, Potawatomi, Sioux, and Woodbury.
Need to make a
are the
designation.
counties.
But you're going on the presumption that UAB or IUB is gonna give Carbon Solutions the go-ahead then, I take it.
Yes.
Okay,
Well, if nothing happens, then
Then,
nothing
yeah.
happens.
right. So what's the advantage or disadvantage of not being signed on?
I think to get you signed on, we can start processing easements and get your parcels identified, get started with the filing process.
What's that agreement look like?
The agreement,
Is it friendly that we
absolutely.
can separate and get a divorce?
It is so
The agreement with
friendly, yeah.
us?
We would go have lunch tomorrow after the divorce. It's,
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't be one of those,
Cause you
I've
gotta
never
work with
heard
our
of that.
county engineer too.
Pardon me?
I think he'd be easy to work with.
You have to work with the county engineer too,
We've done that.
cause you're gonna be working a lot of right of ways.
Mhm. Yep.
Okay. I
Yep.
guess we need to see the agreement.
I can send you the designation of county inspector and probably have a contract, probably by Friday. Yeah, form of
We can
agreement
do
by
a
Friday.
form of agreement.
It's just so you'd have something to look at, no
Yeah.
pressure at all.
That's what we need.
Draft.
No
Yes, sir.
pressure, but
No, absolutely, no pressure at all.
when do you think they will make a decision on this?
I think that they
pipeline?
will make a decision in October.
Okay.
That's
I think that's
just
what
my
they said
gut.
in the paper also.
I think it's gonna be October, there'll be a decision, and I think it's, because they're taking in so much written testimony, they're not even having interveners appear before the IUB, a lot of it's just done on paper. It's gonna cut the hearing process time down a little bit from what everybody expected. But Brian Jordy's got 200 and something landowners that he's representing. Yeah,
Okay,
so it's a lot.
okay.
I went to college in Fort Dodge. You must live on the south side of Fort Dodge.
I do live, a little south of Fort Dodge, can you tell? I'm originally from South Carolina. I'm an implant, I chose Iowa to be my home 10 years
God's
ago.
country.
It is God's country, you're right. It's a beautiful place. I love it up here. So,
Brian, I think that, I'd like to see us get Simon back in here and, we'll get moving on this. Tell them what we think our, requirements or needs are gonna be as far as, us picking, getting reimbursed for some of these costs that are gonna be up front for us, like whether it's 10%, 5%, whatever. And then I'd like to see us move forward with a selection. We've had 2 or 3 people come in and give this presentation.
We had two.
Too.
That's our second.
And I think that if for Potawatomi County to cover our expenses through this process, we need to get Summit in here and get an agreement with them. And
Do you foresee any expenses permitting and things with your department, Matt?
It won't be expenses, we will have some permit fees that will generate some revenues.
Okay. John Rasmussen, do you see quite a bit from your department?
They've already got through the permitting as far as the road crossings and entrances and paid those fees, so they're
Okay.
ahead of that.
Those would be permit fees rather than expenses on your end?
Yeah, so we've already got through that. We got some all road stuff to work out once that gets closer to being known.
Okay, okay.
some of the expenses I'm talking about, Brian, is, we're gonna be responsible for paying them once we get the money from the state. So
Right.
when that check comes in, it touches our treasurer, it touches our auditor.
Correct.
It's gonna touch the board, so there's time and expense in that too.
Mhm.
So I mean, you know, the name of the game isn't for us to make money on this, but we wanna cover our costs.
Yes, we do. Shouldn't cost us.
Well, they
as a
gotta
taxpayer.
cross creeks or go under creeks, so I assume you're dealing with the DNR and probably maybe our local soil and water
They will be
conservation
dealing with-
districts and the DOT, the DOT
Yes,
is gonna be
and-
involved.
Will they go
And the
over
Army
or
Corps of
under the
Engineers.
creeks?
Under.
Under, okay.
Going under the Nishnabotna.
Okay.
They'll bore. They'll dig a big, huge pit and drop the,
Mhm.
and bore underneath it.
And those will all be floodplain development.
I couldn't hear you.
For every crossing they do, that'll be a floodplain development permit through us.
Okay.
I'm amazed at how these pipeline companies go to get a return on their investment, because they're spending a lot of money.
They have already spent a
Yes.
small fortune on
Yes.
easements. I mean, they have
It's-
spent a lot.
It's not quite understandable for me.
No, it's not. It's a lot of money. I mean, it's, yeah, it's money like
There's
we
gonna
can't
be a
fathom.
huge return for them.
Well, it must be.
And that's, I
Sorry,
mean,
they be spending all
everything
that
I've
money.
read.
Yeah, somewhere in the pipeline, right, so there's gonna be a return for them.
Mhm.
We just don't know what it is.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks
you.
for coming
Thank
in,
you very
Christina.
much.
Thanks, Mike.
Michael, thank
Yeah,
you.
Any questions in the meantime, reach out.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
We
right.
could
Thanks.
talk to you about this about 2 years ago, I think.
I know we've been talking about it for forever. I
Right,
was
that's
telling
it.
Christina, so it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep.
Yes, thanks for coming in.
Appreciate it.
Oh, man. Okay, next up, Jana Lemrick, Director of Human Resources, and Garfield Coleman, Risk Manager. Discussion and or decision on an update on occupational health facilities. Jana, Garfield,
Good morning.
good morning.
So as you know, CHI had given us notice that their occupational health facility here in Council Bluffs was closing April 28th. Since then, Garfield and I and team have done a lot of research to try and find occupational health here on this side of the river. And when we say occupational health, what we're talking about is anything for new hires, which would include drug screening, background checks. This is where we send if there's an injury on the job. The employees would start, well, they would call company nurse first, but then they would go to the occupational health clinic. Tina's team and the roads team has a lot to do with that in regards to the physicals that they have to do, the random drug testing that they have to do. So this is a partner that we want to feel comfortable with. And so when CHI closed their location here in Council Bluffs, and then our option is Millard, that's a ways to drive, especially if you're someone who drives a truck and you're on the corner of Walnut and you get called to do your random drug testing. They have a certain amount of time they have to get there. They have to drive all the way to Millard. So we've looked, and there just have not been occupational health providers in Council Bluffs or around us in Iowa. Now, on the Omaha side, there is. We took a look at Concentra. They're located in South Omaha, right off the bridge or the interstate. We toured there, took a look at their services, took a look at their prices. We took a look at Integrated Care, which is also in South Omaha, but on the other side of the interstate, took a look at their prices, their services. Their facilities were really nice. We were really impressed with the services that they can provide, but we knew that we did want to try to stay local. And so, and at the very beginning, we had reached out to Methodist, Jenny Ed, to see, do they have anything? They used to have occupational health, but they didn't anymore. Well, they were gonna look into starting occupational health, and they have since done that. They have opened their occupational health clinic. It's brand new, so there is still some bugs to be worked out, such as their physical therapist is not on site, so to do a back screen, a new hire would have to go to a different location. They would do their drug screen at the hospital right down the street, but then a different clinic to do their back screen, but they're working on that. We let them know that that was really we wanted a one-stop shop. So they've been very receptive to our requests and our needs, and we know that they're in our backyard, they're our neighbors, and so it would be a good community partnership. When we're taking, do you want to add anything?
Nope, I think you covered everything.
Okay. So,
I can just sit here.
one of the things, and so we're not exactly asking for a decision from the board today, because we would need to see what agreements or contracts would be from whichever organization we choose to go with. And we are still waiting for a few pieces of information from Jenny Ed, and one of that being the cost. So for example, a drug screen, which we would use for all new hires, right? Any new hire coming in would receive a drug screen. The cost today is significantly higher than what we're paying with CHI. Now, CHI has not changed their prices on us in years. I would anticipate that might be coming, but I don't know. I can't say for sure. So that is one of the things that we need to consider when we're taking a look at which one are we going to choose.
We're not gonna have the option of CHI anymore.
No, but they can still go out to the Millard location. CHI's occupational health is open, just not the Council Bluffs Clinic.
Is that the Concentra
No, Concentra is a different provider
integrated care?
in integrated care, correct?
They're
They're
in
all
South Omaha,
South, yes.
Yes, South
South
Omaha.
24th.
Mhm. Yeah. So it's not too far. I mean, it's closer than the Millard
We
location.
gotta be considerate of the time that it takes to get way west. There's a lot of time and effort, and they drive their own vehicle.
Potentially, right, and we may be paying them to do it as well. If you're a new hire, obviously, we're not gonna pay you to go get a drug screen. But if you had a work injury and you have to go for a follow-up appointment, we do pay you for the time and mileage.
The time and mileage to go over.
Okay. What, are the drug tests random out there for roads?
No, they have chosen to go to a different location, over by Target, John?
Yeah.
There's a different location, a different company, I think it's an urgent care. It's an urgent care to do their randoms because it's closer.
Okay.
And they had to make a decision faster than the rest of us because of the timing of how long it takes to get out to Millard.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, you got any idea what the city's doing for this at all?
Yeah, last I heard that the city was going with what appeared to me to be a private provider. It wasn't attached to any hospital.
Is there,
And so it was just like a doctor's office here in town. They don't specialize in occupational health medicine. But it's been a couple months, so I don't want to speak 100%
is that
for
an
them.
option, is that an option of some sort?
I mean, it is, but to do occupational health medicine, you do have to have certain certifications to do for our roads team. They have to be certified with the DOT, and so we would really have to look into that. Where, integrated care and Concentra already are, Methodist has already gotten all of their certifications as well.
Okay, the DOT would be going somewhere too.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going, yeah.
Okay.
Right. So this did impact a lot of businesses here in Council Bluffs. We've been in contact with the Council Bluffs schools, the city, the casinos, to see what were they going to do, where are they going, because we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence in checking out all providers and making the best decision for our employees.
Okay.
Tell me again what Jenny Ann's plan is.
So they're open. I think they've seen maybe less than 15 people come through so far, so they're open, but we're just waiting for a few pieces of information from them, such as what does the agreement look like and pricing. We asked a couple of questions on pricing, And so we're waiting for that, but they are open.
I'd like for you to consider keeping that line of communication open with Jenny and trying to have something in Potawatomi County for those services. But I mean, I don't want to tax, I don't want it to cost us 5 times whatever it costs somewhere else.
Right.
But Scott's right, you know, you can take into account how far people are gonna have to drive.
And if we have an employee with a workman's comp claim, we certainly want to keep them close to home for treatment.
Yes.
Right, and Jenny Ed would provide, you know, they have lots of other providers on staff, should we need them.
Right.
And so our goal is to have a decision soon, very, very soon. You know, we're probably gonna be looking at starting to hire for the ski hill in the next couple of months, and we would like, if we're going to make a change, we wanna have that all set in place before we start that mass hiring for the ski hill.
Well, thanks for coming in and keeping us informed. It's a big deal. We need it here.
And so our next step, once we get that information, I think from Methodist, is to make a decision with our internal team, and then we'd be coming back to the board with whatever documents you would need to sign to say, this is what we're choosing, do you agree?
Not the matter.
Yes, and of course, we'll have the attorneys review all that.
I got the agreement with them, so.
Okay?
But the CHI is closed, or th're closing April 28th, 2024?
They closed the Council Bluffs location April 28th, 2023.
Okay.
So we have been sending all of our staff that needed occupational health services to Millard
Okay.
because we didn't want to change twice. So their program is open, just the location is closed.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in for the information.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody got any committee reports?
I have a couple. I did attend the East Cod Soil and Water Conservation District this morning for just a few minutes. And one of the things I suggested to them, or mentioned, that we were interviewing inspectors for the CO2 pipeline. And I would like to use our soil and water districts before we make a decision. They might have some experience working with these companies as well. They might have some additional information that I think would bring us value to make sure we make the best decision.
Okay.
I also, we had Advanced Southwest Iowa did a groundbreaking in Carson last Friday. I wasn't able to attend, but Shalimar reported that there were about 50 people in attendance. And to do a groundbreaking on Main Street in Carson, it was a historic event, and I think it'll be well done, and it's just kind of exciting.
Do you want to say the name of it?
I don't know the name right off the hand. It's Judge something,
Judge Richard.
Judge Richard Distillery, yes. Yeah, with the Richardson family. And then we went to the secondary roads anniversary celebration last week, and thank you, John, for recognizing your employees.
Cool.
Yeah, I was, that day was a busy day for me and started in the morning with John and his group out there. Certainly appreciate the roads department employees, and they look like they're very dedicated. They certainly look like a good group to work with, and John, appreciate the invite out there. Look forward to more of these types of invites. Appreciate it. Also attended the Southwest Iowa Juvenile Detention Facility group discussion and meeting in business as usual. And then later on that afternoon, I was out to the Council Bluffs Airport for the Airport Authority meeting. So they're always got things going on, looking to expand. Looking for helping to bring new business into Potawatomi County and Council Bluffs. So they're a great group also to work with, so appreciate all of that.
Susan, just a question for you, that Judge Richardson, that's in the city limits of Carson?
Correct.
That's a commercial district?
Yes.
I went to White And then, I've done a Zoom meeting on mental health from the state. And then, I missed the groundbreaking, so we're good. And then, let's see, what else? Then, next up is public comments. We got a sheet over there with signups.